Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Testimony Thursdays. I'm your host, Dr. Jazz, physical therapist, author, child of God, all of those great things. And this episode is part two from our previous episode of A Journey Through Rehabilitation, Laughter, Tears, and Healing. So, on part two, I'm going to talk about how I started a career as a physical therapist in Hawaii. So, let's start with our scripture. Let's get right into it. So this is from Matthew 7, 7 through, let's do 7 through 11. Let's go ahead and do 7 through 12. 7 through 12. So ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be open. Which one of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, through your evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So, in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Well, so I wanted to start with that scripture because I was talking to my homegirl actually the other day about, asking God for different things that I desire and I want in life. And, um, just thinking about like my earthly parents and how much they, have been there for me and just, help me get through school and like physical therapy and all that good stuff. But, just thinking about the gifts that God has given me is like, oh my goodness, it's amazing. And I think we like to really, like cheat ourselves with different things. Like we think, oh, this is all I can get, or I can't ask for that because blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why not? I see other people with it. Why I can't ask for it? So, and just, also having like a pure heart and the intention of why you want what you want. And I know my pastor was talking about the other day, like sometimes, when we ask for something, like as a kid, if you ask for something and you want like this toy or this Barbie, and then like 2 weeks later, you don't know where the toy at, you don't know, you haven't played with that toy in forever. And I feel like God definitely does a really good job with giving us the things that we need. And also, just really going off of what he his strength is. So I was listening to this podcast and I heard somebody say that your best play is not even in God's playbook. And I was like, that's so powerful because what we think is amazing is like, I feel like God is laughing at us and he's like, I am about to do you so much better. So let's get into it. Let's talk about how I landed my career in Hawaii. So we started off, we ended the last episode where I was talking about how I was doing travel pediatric physical therapy, and I was in Arizona on a Native American reservation. So that contract was for 3 months. I was doing school-based pediatrics, and the end of the year was coming up. I did end of school year services, but so my recruiter like emailed me like halfway through the assignment and he was like, here are some other travel pediatric positions for you to look into and kind of figure out where you want to go with your next assignment. So I was like, okay, and I'm going through the list and stuff, and I thought I was gonna like end up in like Texas or like California, somewhere in those areas. And I saw Hawaii on the list, and I said, now wait a minute, I before I moved to Hawaii, I've never been to Hawaii before ever. So I was like, I have to like get this position. Like this is awesome. So it was for a school-based position and it was in Honolulu. So I told my recruiter, like, this is the one, like this is my top choice. And he was like, okay, well, we need to get you licensed in Hawaii before you can apply. Like before you can interview, you need to be licensed. And I didn't know that. And it takes a while to get licensed, especially in the school systems, because you have to get fingerprinted. And, like I said, I was living in Arizona. So on a reservation and it was in the middle of nowhere. So I had to go to Phoenix to get fingerprints. And I also had to get like another TB test. So it was taking a while. And by the time like I got the fingerprints and all that, I don't even think I got the fingerprints. By the time I got the TB test, it was somebody already got the position. It wasn't open anymore. So then I'm like fixated on Hawaii. So I literally Google, I'm not playing, like I literally Google travel pediatric physical therapy position in Hawaii. And a position popped up through another like travel company. And it said like, cars included, housing's included, outpatient pediatric clinic. And I was like, this just sounds too good to be true. Like, there's no way, like, it's an outpatient pediatric clinic, all of those things are included. Like, that just doesn't even sound right. So I was like, I'm not going to apply. Like, that's probably a scam. And then it kept bothering me. It was like something was like telling me, like, no, you need to apply. So I was like, okay. So I just put like in my information for the recruiting thing. And then the recruiter called me like the next day. And this was like over the weekend. So I want to say I put my information in on like a Monday, and the recruiter called me on Tuesday. And he was like, yeah, I know you're interested in doing travel physical therapy with our company. It looks like you're interested in a position in Indiana. And I was like, Indiana? I was like, no, I didn't say that one. Like, there's one for Hawaii. And he was like, what? So he was like doing some more research, like while we were on the phone. And he was like, oh, you're right. Like, this is a really good deal. I didn't even see this position open. And it looks like three other applicants have already applied. Like, they're about to close it soon. So I was like, oh my goodness. So he was like, get in your information as soon as possible. Give me your resume. There was something else I had to give him. And for this position, like, you didn't have to be licensed before you interviewed. So he was like, get all of that in. I'm going to send it to them, and I'm going to try to set up an interview. So I said, okay. So I got him all that information by, I think it was probably the end of that day, Tuesday. But of course, it's a time difference because he was on the East Coast, and then, like, Hawaii's a different time than Arizona and stuff. So we're trying to, move quickly. So then, so I got all that information in, and I want to say Wednesday, he was like, they want to interview you. Like, they were about to close out the position, but they really want to talk to you first. And I was like, okay. So I interviewed on, had to be either that Thursday or Friday. Like, it was very quick how everything was moving. So I want to say it was Friday, and I was talking to them, and just explaining my dreams and stuff I want to do with physical therapy and why I want to work for their company and all that. Because by this time, I was already looking at their Instagram. Like, I follow a bunch of pediatric physical therapy clinics and stuff on Instagram and stuff, so I already was following them and seeing what they were doing in the community. And so when I interviewed, I was definitely prepared to answer those questions. And yeah, so I interviewed Friday, and I want to say Friday night was when they were like, we want to offer you the position. And I remember just being so happy. I was so excited. And I was like texting my family on the East Coast, and the time difference, it was already late for them because I was in Arizona. And I was just happy. I was joyful. And I was like, I cannot believe this happened from a Google search. Like, this was, I didn't hear about it from my recruiter or anything. Like, this was a different company, totally different company. So things got rolling with that. And I ended up moving to Maui, July 2023. So that was only supposed to be a 6-month contract, but that turned into like a year that I was working there. And it was a lot of fun. It was definitely a lot of fun. Like, I loved all of my patients, the families, like my coworkers. And the thing I loved about the clinic is that they had a lot of like high tech equipment. So, like, standing frames, gait trainers, a light gate. And if you don't know what a light gate is, it's basically a harness where you can put a child in, and it supports their trunk. And you can like help support their legs so they can stimulate walking. And eventually, you will want them to be able to initiate steps independently, to see if they're making progress. You can work on balance, like standing balance. There's so much you can do. Um, they also had this other equipment called the Motomed. And with that, you can have like people who are ambulatory or non-ambulatory, wheelchair users, non-wheelchair users, roll them to the Motomed. You can put their feet in and their hands in. And what the Motomed will do is passively move their limbs. And then you can see if they're doing it actively because it'll like highlight how much they're using with their muscles. So that was just really cool. Like, it was just an amazing clinic, and so much you could do for kids who had severe like medical complications. Like, I felt like it brought a lot of hope to families because, like, some of their kids, like, I remember this one kid who has muscular dystrophy. He was coming in and doing some exercises and some stretches and some strengthening, but he was a wheelchair user, a power wheelchair user, and he hasn't used his legs in years. And I remember just put him in the motor med. And I was like, listen, I don't know if this is gonna work, but I want to try this with you. And I put him in the motor med. And I remember like he was a very quiet, shy kid, but he was just so happy and his dad was happy. And it was just like, this is another way for you to be able to exercise your body. So I really appreciated that. And I was in Maui during the wildfires, and that was just very traumatic in itself because for me, like I was living in upcountry Maui, so it was some fires there. The fires weren't as big as the fires on the west side in Lahaina, but I remember this was like a month after I moved there. So y'all, we have so much to talk about. Okay, so one, um, okay, this the wildfires. I'm gonna start with that. That was like a month, like or maybe like a month and a half from me moving to Maui. And if you know me, I don't have like a good sense of direction. So, I got the alert on my phone when I was living in upcountry, and it said like basically you need to evacuate. There's a wildfire, and I was like, what is going on? So I stayed in a studio, and the family was like it was a house that was connected. It's called like an ohana. I stayed in the ohana, and they had two kids and two dogs. So I woke up from the alarm that I got, and I was like, I didn't hear anything. And I could see some smoke like up the hill, but I was like, I feel like people would be running if something was going on. And this was at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, I would hear the dogs barking, I would hear the kids getting up. So I was like, okay. So I went ahead and like packed a bag, and I was just kind of up for the rest of the morning. And I remember like texting my family, and I was like, hey, like there's some fires going on. But I don't really know too much of what's happening right now. So my family was like, okay, be careful, like not really getting into it, getting that worried. So I go to work, and then like before you know it, like the fires just increased, and like it was just a mess. And like the people on the west side, they didn't get the alert that something was going on. So, it was just a lot of devastation that happened. And we ended up being on the national news, and my family was like, you need to get out of there now. You need to get on the next flight out. And I was like, I was just telling y'all that the fires were happening. So it was really sad, because I think that a lot of times when we do think about like wildfires and like devastation, we don't think about children that have like special needs or like the elderly. So basically, a lot of our patients, they lost all of their medical equipment like G tubes, walkers, standing frames, adaptive trachs, AFOs. And it was just, it was really, really hard on everybody. We were trying to get in contact with like insurance companies. A lot of people sent so many donations we were so thankful for. My travel company I was working for, they like donated like $500 to us. So we got a lot of help. And Dr. Janetta Spears, one of my mentors, she definitely donated from her brand, EJ Kicks. She donated socks and different adaptive shoes to help our children who lost everything. So that was really sad. Then another story, so one, the story of how I got there was just wild, like, and it's not a coincidence. Definitely, God wanted me there. And then another thing too that happened like a month after I moved to Hawaii, my aunt ended up like transitioning to heaven, and that was just hard on the family, because that was, it was like the first person that I come from a big family, so it was the first person on my mom's side to like transition to having one of her siblings. And it was just rough. And I remember one of my patients, I was taking over for one of the physical therapists that was working there. She was also doing travel pediatric PT. And I have to get her on the podcast because her testimony is like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about that. I'm hoping she'll agree. I haven't asked her yet. But I was taking over for one of her patients, and the mom of the patient, the child had torticollis, so she was being treated for like a tight neck muscle, which I love treating torticollis. Like that's one of my favorite things ever. And she was about to leave, and the mom was like, hey, like, can I pray over you, when you go back home? Because she was going back home to Florida. And she was like, okay. So she said a prayer, and basically in her prayer, she talked about how this is one of the prayers I still use for today. Like she talked about how, prepare the hearts for the people that we're treating for physical therapy, that they're ready to hear the information that they may not be ready to hear. Make sure that their heart is open. So that's something that I always use. And then in her prayer, she said that she was praying for the lady. She was praying for both of us, but she's very like specific in her prayers. So she's praying for the lady that I was replacing, and she was like, I just want to pray over her future kids and the marriage that she has with her husband and all this and that. So the prayer, she ended the prayer, we said amen and all that. And I thought she told her that she was pregnant. And she didn't tell her she's pregnant. So she's crying and she's like, oh, like what's going on? And she was like, I'm expecting. That's why, I really want to go back home. And like her testimony with her pregnancy and everything, y'all, like she has to get on the podcast because that was just that lady was very, I don't even remember the lady's name, but she was very like spiritually inclined. And I remember I followed her brand. She has like an athletic brand, and I followed her on Instagram. And she was telling me about some churches. So when I moved to Hawaii, like people were inviting me to church, and I was kind of offended. I'm like, why is everybody inviting me to church? Like, what is going on? And because I was never like a church person. Like I always felt like people in the church were like, not always felt this way, but as I got older, I was like, people are like hypocrites. Like I don't want to be a part of that community and all that. So she was inviting me to church, and she told me about a couple churches, and we follow each other on Instagram, like her athletic brand. And then when my aunt ended up transitioning to heaven, like she messaged me that same day, and she was like, hey, like I don't know why you're on my heart right now, but I just wanted to send you these churches again. And I was like, oh my goodness, thank you so much for sending this to me. Like me and my family, we're just going through something and all that. So that's how I ended up going to church and like rededicating my life to Christ, like getting baptized again. And I went from like completely like, I'm not doing church no more to like fully like invested. And it was just an amazing like transformation. So I'm so thankful for her, so thankful that God brought her into both of our lives because yeah, like I said, like the other PT, what her testimony is like wild, y'all. It's really, really good. So that's how I ended up there. And then I left Maui and I moved to Oahu. And the reason that I left is because like Maui was amazing. It was awesome. It's very quiet though, and it's like very country. And I just, I wanted to be more like city life, city vibes and stuff like. And I loved my job. Now management, we were kind of button heads a little bit, but it was nothing serious. It was like, I just didn't want the productivity to me and the pay like wasn't matching. And so I was like, I want something new. And I like gave them a heads up and stuff. And like me leaving was like a whole thing. It was just, yeah. So I moved to Oahu, and now I can say after, going on 4 years now, I graduated in 2021, physical therapy school, going on 4 years, I feel like I finally am in a space where I have a healthy work-life balance. Like right now I'm dressed like to go to work, because I have to go to work in about 30 minutes, but I feel good. Like I'm working. So this is my schedule. So I work in home health physical therapy. And my only regret about home health physical therapy is not starting earlier. So I love the flexibility. I love being able to make my own schedule. I don't want nobody breathing down my neck, like with productivity, any of that. So I work part-time, but I'm a part-time employee, but I work mainly like full-time. So with home health, like I get paid per point. You can be salary, but I get paid per point. So it's basically like per patient. And like with Hawaii, it's hard to have people stay. So I feel like the pay that I'm receiving is finally the pay that I deserve. So I do that. And I try not to see more than 4 home health patients a day. So like today I only have 2. And yeah, I really like it. It's like I can I feel really good. Like I don't feel stressed. Now I get stressed because some of the patients I work with, like I work in geriatric, so I'm working with people with chronic stroke, chronic pain, spinal cord injuries, Parkinson's. So that can be kind of heavy, but as far as like my schedule, I don't feel like that's stressful. And then I also work in pediatrics virtually. So I work, so full circle moment, I work for a school district on the Native American reservation, the same reservation that I was working in person. So I just thought that that was wonderful and I absolutely love it. And I feel like with virtual pediatrics, a lot of people are like, how do you do that remotely? How does that work? And my students are like phenomenal. And I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, how are they so engaged? Like, I don't get it. Because as soon as I log on, I have this one girl, I can log on like a minute late. And I'm on there and she's like, Miss Jasmine, we were waiting on you. And I'm like, relax. But she's just so cute. And like our last session, she was like, Miss Jasmine, where are you? And I was like, I'm in Hawaii. And she was like, let me see. And I like went and I showed her like my outside because I have a really nice view. And I showed her my outside and she was like, oh my goodness, Miss Jasmine. I'm like, yeah, so I'm sorry it's cold over there right now, but they just, and I feel like they respond so well to like virtual services because that's all they know. They have grown up with FaceTime, Zoom. Like I didn't grow up with all those things. So I feel like it takes the older generation to kind of it takes us a minute to realize how impactful, virtual services can be. And it's in an underserved area. So it's hard to get people out there and like stay there. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my schedule and I feel really happy. Like I feel like I have time to do like a podcast. I have time for mentorship. I have time to go home. And cuz I've been going home a lot. Now that I think about it, like I went home in September for my nephew's first baseball game and then I went home for Thanksgiving in November. And yeah, I think that was the last time I went home. And now it's January. So I'm like, I definitely get to go home a lot and I like being able to move my schedule around. So like if I do, want to go on a trip for the week or something, like for me, I only have to hit 12 points. I'm typically seeing between like 20 to 25 points. I feel like 20 points is like my sweet spot. But if I want to see 12 points, I can see 12 points in like 2 days. So I can work like a Monday, Tuesday, and then be off and then work the next week, like Friday, Saturday or something. So I have time in between to like travel and all that good stuff. And I just love it. I feel like anybody out there, if you're looking for like flexibility and you still want to make sure that you are able to like pay your bills and like get paid what you feel like you're valued, I would definitely say look into home health, look into virtual services, because for me I never wanted to work like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday for like 30 years. Like I was like, that's definitely not for me. Like I want to be able to enjoy life. Like on Monday, I went to the MLK parade that was in the morning, and then I had two patients like that afternoon. So I like being able to do things and like enjoy life Monday through Friday, not just Saturday and Sunday. Um, and another thing that I want to say too is that just like in the beginning, where we talked about the scripture from Matthew 7 and how if our earthly parents will give us gifts or if our earthly friends will give us gifts, what more will God our Father give us gifts? So for me, doing travel physical therapy, I'm thinking, oh, this is the sweet spot. Like this is amazing. I get to do a couple assignments, make good money, go home, do another assignment. And I would never have imagined coming to Hawaii. So I just want to say for everybody out there, it's like I get so many messages of students that are struggling in school or who have failed out of school and they just think that that's the end of the world. But for me, it's like I've been through it and I'm so glad I kept going. Now, if God would have said, hey, because God, He'll tell us, like, okay, this is A and Z. A is, this is where we're starting. And Z is like the promised land. This is all the promises that you're going to get. This is what's given to you. But we don't know B, C, D, E, all that. So for me, I feel like I'm so thankful that I didn't know that I was going to have to go through what I went through. But I'm glad that I held on to what was going to be the end goal. And the end goal is even more than what I could have imagined. Like, I'm thinking the end goal, was, oh, I'm going to be happy as a physical therapist. I didn't know I was going to move to Hawaii, like paradise, and be working as a physical therapist after I failed out of physical therapy school. So I just want to say, keep going. If it's hard and it's frustrating and you're annoyed and you're in the midst of failure, you're not at the end yet. You're not at the end. Keep going, keep pushing through, because the end result is even better than what you imagine. And that's helping shape your character, so then you can reach out and give advice to people and inspire people to be a better physical therapist and a better human being. So thank you all for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all next week for, oh, I almost forgot the test and the testimony. Excuse me, guys. So I would say, what is a test that I would say a test that I'm kind of going through right now is being patient. So I definitely feel like I have like my dream career. Like I get the flexibility, I get to help people, but I also get to make sure my cup is filled. But I feel like the part that I'm waiting on is definitely like paying off my debt. Like student loans, like I'm so ready for all of that to just be out of my life. Like all that stuff. And I can see it happening, but I feel like it's happening slowly. So that's something that I'm kind of going through right now. And that's going to lead to a huge testimony. So thank you all for listening. I will see you all next week and have a blessed week.